In this lesson, we're going to extend the concepts you learned in Lesson 2 about building analysis models that capture the processing requirements of the new system. So for any system, there are two types of requirements. That must be defined and modeled. So first is processing requirements, and the other one is the data requirements. So this lesson addresses the processing requirements by identifying and documenting use cases. So a use case modeling is a powerful technique to assist system analysts to identify, understand, communicate, and document the processing requirements of the new system. As you see in Chapter 1, identifying user stories and use cases is a key task when defining functional requirements because these form the basis for the list of functions the system needs to carry out. So virtually all recent approaches to system development begins with the requirements modeling. Activity with the concept of a user story and use case. So user stories and use cases are very closely related concepts. User stories are simple one-sentence description of a work-related task done by a user to achieve more goal or result. In other words, a user story describes a goal the user has when using the system. So as you've learned in Lesson 2, the analysts need to gather information by interviewing the stakeholders. So in meeting with stakeholders, the analysts encourage participants to write each user story on an index card or on a whiteboard. So the objective is to get a potential user to articulate what he or she or what the user wants to do with the new system. So again, in the objective of writing each user stories is to get a potential user to articulate what he or she wants to do with the new system. A standard template helps user think through what they want and why they want it. So the standard template for a user story looks like this. So as the role of the user, I want to, what the goal is, so that, and what the benefit is. So as an example, here is a user story for a bank teller. So as a teller, so this is the role of the user. I want to make deposit. Make deposit is the goal to quickly serve more customers, and this is the reason or the benefit. So this is how you write a user story. So a final part of a user story is the acceptance criteria. So these are the features that must be present in the final system for the user to be satisfied. So, meaning to say, this indicates the features that must be implemented or that must satisfy with the resulting implementation. So, they focus on functionality, not on features or user interface design. So, for example, so these are the acceptance criteria for the user story that I've shown you a while ago. For a bank teller making a deposit, so the acceptance criteria are the customer lookup must be by name or by account number. It should be nice to display photo and signature of customer. Any check hold requirements must be indicated. Current balance and new balance must be displayed. So the analyst uses the acceptance criteria to clarify the expectations of the user to and verify the user is looking at the user story at an appropriate level of analysis. So when the user story is implemented and refined, the acceptance criteria are used for testing later on when the new system before the new system should be deployed. So there will be a testing, and the testing will be based on the acceptance criteria of this user story. So some consider it much like a contract between developers and the users that limits controversy later in the project. So this figure right here shows a user story for a shipping clerk responsible for shipping the items on a new order for RMO. So as you can recall about our fictional company, the RMO. So this is for the shipping. So the role of a user as the shipping clerk, the goal is to ship an order as accurately as possible as the order details are available. So the acceptance criteria are this. You can pause the video and so you can read each acceptance criteria. Another concept is about use cases. So use cases also define the task that the user does that utilizes the system. So use case is an activity that the system performs. So the key word here is so what the system performs usually in response to a request by user. In chapter 1, if you can go back to that lesson, or in lesson 1, you can see a use case about the RMO trade show system. So creating use cases has two techniques or for identifying use cases. One is to identify user goal, And also, we can use the user goal technique and also event decomposition technique. So usually the developers interview all types of users and stakeholders and then make and refine notes about each use case. Can name each use case using verb and noun.